PowerPlayChess, brought to you in association with Kagi. Round 7 saw the big showdown in the Open Olympiad. We had India on 100% playing China, just a point behind. Absolutely crucial match. But the big drama came before even a move had been played, because Ding Liren declined to play in this match. He stepped down. Well, we were looking forward to a Gukesh Ding preview of their forthcoming World Championship match. Wasn't to be, but that really, for me, that's a big sign that Ding just doesn't have confidence at the moment. Of course, his team needed him to perform in this crucial match, but didn't want to play. Incredible. It was a really tight contest. I'm going to show you two games. So first of all, Arjun Erigaisi against Bu Xiangzhi. Erigaisi on incredible form, 6 out of 6 going into this game. Bu, well, he's a tough competitor. Not an easy pairing for Erigaisi. So let's see. It's a Petrov. Well, this is the Chinese speciality among the top players. So that's perhaps predictable. Interesting to see that Erigaisi goes for this, I think, quite pragmatic system against the Petrov, where, White doesn't have a structural advantage here, but gets pretty free development. And it's a very sharp system with kings on opposite sides. That can lead to interesting strategy, double-edged strategy, as we're about to see. So you can see how having these pawns here has enabled White's pieces to come out very easily. So these bishops are on good positions. And that position, that pawn in the position that it is on d6 blocks this bishop. So you can see White just has a little bit more freedom for his pieces. Rook e1, and now here's the first, well, I would say quite contentious move, c5. Because structurally it looks very strange, because this is now a backward pawn, gives White a target. So why is Black doing this with c5? Well, it does cover d4, and that's a crucial square. It can also set up a queenside attack. So the queen can now pop out to a5, and it can help when this b pawn is advanced. But it's double-edged, of course, strategically. Bishop g5, h6, and an exchange, and bishop e4. This position reminds me of a game between Abdusatorov and Giri, which I showed on this channel. So that was played in the Tata Steel tournament earlier in the year. And Abdusatorov won a model game where he managed to control d5 and it reached a pure knight against bishop endgame. Giri was completely outplayed. It was beautiful. So this is what Erigaisi is trying to do. He's got this square under control. And also there's potential threat to d6 as well. And at this moment, basically Black has to be extremely careful. If you fall into a passive position, as Giri did, then it can have fatal consequences in the long term. Bu thought for 14 minutes and played queen a5. So this is a sharp reaction. He's not getting bogged down defending this pawn. So this is threatened. a3 stops the threat. And again, Bu is not bothering defending this pawn. This can be taken. But, Black certainly has compensation here. Two bishops look quite nice, and there's potential to attack. But queen f4 from Erigaisi. So potentially this bishop will move to d5, but it looks like Erigaisi wants to take this pawn with the rook, which could have more serious consequences than taking with the queen. And here Bu thought for 20 minutes and played a brilliant move. b5. He's obviously calculated this very carefully indeed. Allowing rook takes. So this bishop is attacked. And there's potential to sacrifice here as well. But b4. He's not bothering defending, but clearly he'd calculated this extremely carefully. So if rook takes bishop, this is a mistake because actually this gives black a tremendous attack. This is with the threat of rook b1, and this is too much. But rook takes bishop is more dangerous. You know, that's dark squared bishop attacking here is a really dangerous piece, so it makes sense to knock that one out. And if pawn takes, then, well, black doesn't want to go in for this. This is looking nasty. But again, Bu had calculated this. Pawn takes pawn. Pawn takes and queen takes. So the moment black is a piece down, but this is threatened. And, well, obviously with the queen and rook here, with white's queen a little bit offside from the queen side, then this is extremely dangerous. Rook d6 gets the rook away from the attack. Queen a3 check. Now the king has to go wandering. Queen a5 check. That's precise. And you know, white doesn't have it easy here. If the king steps to the e file, then f5 is of course a nasty pin. If it moves to e2, then, well, I mean, I guess f5 is possible again, but then the king would step back. But bishop b5, that's the problem. So white doesn't want to allow that. And c3, well, that allows rook b2, and actually white should be okay here, but, well, difficult to calculate this, but this should be a draw. Black has a lot of material down, but, well, there's a perpetual check if white steps correctly. So that should be a draw. But in the end, Erigaisi just moved back with the king. He thought this was obviously the simplest way to just keep things under control. And black doesn't have anything better than to check and to repeat the position. So that's how the game ended. Well, it was short, but it burnt brightly. Draw by repetition. This was the critical moment in the game, and this is where Bu thought, you know, that was 20 minutes well invested to understand that b5 was actually a critical move. Unless you break out like this, then black is in massive trouble. Great stuff from Bu, and, well, Erigaisi also calculated extremely well. So we had, let me see, in the other games, Yu Yangyi against Pragnananda. This ended quite quickly in a draw. Again, there's a repetition. It went like this: rook c1, queen here, rook d1 opposite the queen, and rook queen c7, and rook c1, and so on. Repetition. Wang Yue against Hari Krishna was, well, a very complex game that finally ended in a draw in this rook and pawn endgame. I mean, both sides had chances of the advantage, but, well, this one you still need to be careful with black, actually, because the king is cut off on the 7th. But I think the thing in this position is if the king goes in front of the pawn, then black is going to have time to advance here. So that ended in a draw. So it all came down to this very long game between Gukesh and Wei Yi on board 1. Well, we know Wei Yi on fantastic form. Of course, he had a great Tata Steel tournament in January. So not easy for Gukesh. In fact, they're rated about the same. So this is a position after move 31. I mean, it's very tricky. Knight d5. So this is all about tactics. So the knight hits the bishop and threatens knight e7. So black has to play rook b1 check and rook d1 pinning. But a little tactic, rook takes bishop and then knight c3. So we've now gone into an endgame with these two knights against a rook. Now the computer, if you feed this into a computer, it just says that it's equal. When I look at this, I just think the only player that has winning chances here is white. Assuming that white can hold this pawn. I mean, if black manages to take this pawn, that's no problem at all for black. You know, even winning chance there. But I think the crucial thing is white can hold this pawn. And therefore, I think the only player that has winning chances in this position is white. So Gukesh playing white. Now, very often you would say, well, you know, this is a numerical advantage. 2 minor pieces against a rook should just be better for white. Well, it's not so clear in this position because these knights don't have very good anchors. You know, this isn't supported by. They need to support each other really. They're inflexible. And this rook is a long-range piece and is able to hassle the A pawn and the knights and the G pawn. So that's why the computer gives the assessment of equal, because if black plays precisely, it should indeed be a draw. But still, as far as I'm concerned, white is the only one with winning chances here, because white can stabilize. I mean, this is a stable position. It's an inflexible position. You can see everything needs to be protected. But it might be possible for white to wriggle around and find a way to put pressure on black. So Gukesh is still trying here. So at least the king has come over to support the knight. At this moment, so Wei Yi just put his rook back. King d6 is the machine's choice here, moving towards the A pawn. Now that's a difficult decision to make because of course it could be that f5 is vulnerable, but that's the strategy that is favoured by the machine. But from this point, Gukesh starts to get control. You can see that king is a little bit restricted in that it's having to defend that f pawn. Again, you know, if you put this to the machine, then it still thinks that black is fine. But it's now getting critical, and the moves that black has to make in order to maintain the balance are absolutely not easy at all. So that's an exchange of pawns, eventually. Here we go. And, well, it seems like, you know, this h-pawn should give black counterplay, particularly when the king is so far away. But this is getting tricky now. Computer thinks that this is still playable for black. Still should hold the position. But h5 looks like a very natural move. You know, you want to get that pawn down the board. In fact, here, Gukesh missed this move, which is actually very, very strong. And should be winning immediately, actually, because in this position, that pawn is really strong. And if rook check, king e2. Once that one drops, then, yeah, white should be doing well. But yeah, you know, even here, you've got to be really careful. So, yeah, I mean, listen, I understand why Gukesh played knight c3, even if the computer thinks that's a lot easier to play. I mean, really, black can only survive this by only moves. I mean, obviously with this pawn steaming down the board, this is tough. But, you know, black has this pawn as well, h3. Again, Wei Yi is playing these really natural moves. Apparently, this is a losing move. Instead, I'm going to show you this because this shows you what a computer line is like. So h3, to my eyes, completely natural. You want to move that pawn down the board, and wow, this could go badly wrong for white. The computer gives this line, and I'm just going to zip through this very quickly. So it throws in this check. Nobody knows why, but here we go. So both sides queen. Now this looks terrifying because white is the first one to check, and the knights can join the struggle. But the computer shows that actually black is okay here. I mean, I think an important thing is that this square is covered, so the knight can't move in, and black survives incredibly. Okay, so back to the game. h3, as I said, looks completely natural, but this is now losing. So let's see why. So, okay, threatening to queen, rook f1. Stops the pawn promoting. Knight g5. h2. I mean, this is unbelievably scary. Knight f3. This is a winning move. So the knight blocks the rook. If black makes a queen, now this is different. Let's see what the difference is. Well, the difference is clear, that actually the queen is shut out. And this actually leads to a forced checkmate. I'm going to zip through this so you can see the difference. I mean, again, this is very involved and very beautiful, actually. And that's checkmate, incredibly. Queen b5, unbelievable. So after knight f3, now the players were short of time. King e7 played, which again makes it all the more remarkable, I think, actually how accurately they played. Knight h2, so the h-pawn is gone. Now, of course, if the rook manages to take the pawn, that's a draw, but this is a winning move. Crucially, that rook can't go behind because of knight check and the knight takes rook. And this is how the game ended. That was the final move, king e4. Right. So why is that the end? Well, if, let's say, rook g3, then the rook is gone. And if rook a4 check, then basically the checks run out, and check and queen. And of course, that one doesn't work because of knight f4. I mean, this is so delicate, but in the end, Gukesh, well, his determination to win this game was remarkable, because this was really tricky. You know, you could still lose, particularly, you know, when it got so sharp with the passed pawns. But his calculation was absolutely brilliant, has to be said. So that victory meant that India won the match 2.5, 1.5. So three draws and that win. So if we look at the standings after 7 rounds, India in the lead with 14 points. Iran have 13, so they face each other. And then there are 4 teams on 12. So India looking incredibly strong. You know, they are now clear favourites. They're not there yet, but clear favourites. I should mention, in the Women's Olympiad, India also out in front as they defeated Georgia, actually really convincingly, 3-1. Wow, there's a lot going on here. I'll do my best to keep you up to date. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. There are a lot of you watching, I know, who haven't subscribed yet. Hit that subscribe button and then you'll know when I post my next video. Thanks for watching.